You are listening to War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast presented by Realm of the Mist Entertainment with your host, John Tolly.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast. We are coming tonight, as always, from deep within the Outer Rim, far beyond the watchful eyes of the Galactic Empire. My name is John Mark Tolley, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Christopher Stolle. Chris, how you doing today, man?
The Force has burned me. If I get any more sun, I'm going to look like Anakin Skywalker after Mustafar.
Oh, yeah. Well, we've had a lot of rain here. We've had, let's just say I saw an old man trying to build a boat the other day, so I don't know if I should be worried about that or not, but...
Well, only if he starts gathering two of every species of animal.
This is true. I haven't seen, though I did see a couple of geese flying over today, so I don't know what that means, but... All right. Well, the only really piece of news that we have today that I know of is some pictures came out recently of Last Jedi. I saw one of Luke and R2.
That stood out.
And the other one was JJ with what appears to be the Knights of Ren.
I did not see that one. The other one that stuck out to me was Poe Dameron, Chewbacca, and Lando with BB-8 and the other new droid. I can't remember his name. All on in the Falcon cockpit.
Yes, I did. I think I did see that one too. Yeah, that was a good one. But yeah, we
that was Vanity Fair that released that, by the way.
Yeah. If you get a chance, the picture with the Knights of Ren, it's not an action shot. It's a directorial, him directing them. But he's kind of surrounded by them, talking to all of them. But they're in full costume, so it looks like we're going to get our first look at the Knights of Ren.
Yay!
In this movie, so
see that's why you need JJ back at the helm, because. He can actually tell the story that he wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I mean, kind of tying off from Realm of the Mist podcast, too. We just did the special for Game of Thrones, and the reason that ties into Star Wars is with as lackluster as that season finale episode was and the whole entire season 8 of Game of Thrones, should we really be concerned about the next trilogy, which is supposed to be helmed by Benioff and Weiss, the creators of Game of Thrones?
I mean, my question, I'll be honest, I haven't watched Game of Thrones since about season 4 or 5. But how much of it was just with this last season, them being hamstringed with a short season and trying to stuff as much as they could in to such a short season? You had 8 seasons, 7 seasons of pretty good stuff, and I mean, can we really judge the entire thing? What's going to happen with the Star Wars on one season, one short season?
I don't know. Can you judge Quantum Leap based on its terrible ending? Seinfeld on its terrible ending? The Sopranos?
I don't think so. I mean, you can't. I don't think you can judge the entire body of work on one. Just because the show ended bad, you have to look at the entire body of work. And I mean, it might have ended not the way we wanted it to. You still have however many seasons of all those other shows to look back and think that was some great television.
But the thing is the greatest portions of it. This is why I bring it up as a cause for concern. When you look back at the first 5 seasons of Game of Thrones, they were based on George R.R. Martin's books.
Yeah.
So they had a template to follow. They had something to go by. Now in season 6, obviously there was some great things in it, and they had a full season. I understand that, but that was their first taste of writing in a galaxy, if you will, created by somebody else, and now they're writing the story. And subsequently 7 and 8. It makes me concerned. It's like, okay, I got no problems with them still directing. I'm not pulling the episode 8 thing with Rian Johnson. That people do. Oh my God, he needs to be fired and blah blah blah. I'm not calling for that. But I'm concerned that maybe Benioff and Weiss don't know how to close something out. And if that is the case, maybe the best thing that Benioff and Weiss could do is just be directors and let somebody else who understands Star Wars write it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Because the one thing I can give this last season was at least it was visually stunning. The story made no sense. It was very rushed, very shoddy, but visually it was beautiful. Yeah. So if you let them shoot the film, but somebody else tell the freaking story, I think we'll be all right. If you're putting it in the hands of Benioff and Weiss to write the story as well, now I'm a little concerned.
So here's my if we are looking at, and this is kind of tying in with what we're just talking about, if we're looking at, like we're expecting to, the Old Republic, and we have Benioff and Weiss directing, do you think this should take a more, shall we say, adult lean, or do you think it should be, because it's Star Wars, it should still be a more, I don't want to say family friendly, but no more than a PG-13 rating?
Well, if we're talking Old Republic, I got to look at the fan base. The fan base of the video games and the books, and stuff that were in the EU of the Old Republic were really kind of young adult to adult. I don't think young kids really read it as much. Maybe the comics, but that's about it.
Yeah.
And of course, maybe they played the video games if Dad would put down a controller long enough to let them. So I wouldn't say that I would want this to be, sorry fans, I don't want this to be an R-rated movie. I don't want to exclude kids from seeing the movies, but I'd say somewhere in between original trilogy and Rogue One.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that little mix of realism and a little grittiness, but not so dark and gloomy that it would turn away younger audiences.
Yeah. I think somewhere, like, I'm thinking of kind of how, like you said, Rogue One, or even a Episode 3, more of a PG-13, so you can get a little bit more of the violence, but not necessarily over the top.
Right.
No
killing
gore.
Younglings.
Aww. But yeah, I mean, because the Old Republic was a much more. The books and the comics and the games were much more brutal, and just it definitely wasn't for little kids.
Right, and again, using Benioff and Weiss and what they did visually with some of the infamous battles of the Game of Thrones universe, these guys could give us that saber on saber, like Sith versus Jedi, large scale battles, and make it look phenomenal. I know they can.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you definitely don't want it to be cartoony. You don't want Jar Jar Binks running through the fray, wildly fumbling with a lightsaber and killing a bunch of Sith. You want true Jedi masters versus true Sith masters just mowing each other down.
Exactly. And I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, where it goes. We've said this before with this story, and what part of the Old Republic will we get, and how far back will they go, and everything like that. So I'm interested, as you said, with the some of the things coming from Game of Thrones. Tentative, maybe not. I wouldn't say worried, but I don't know what the right word I'm looking for is.
No, I get you. I'm apprehensive of it now too. I think that's the word you were looking for.
Little apprehensive.
Especially because when I think about the Old Republic with Benioff and Weiss, there's really only one conclusion I could have. If Disney wants to save Star Wars and bring the fandom back into the fold, one, they need Episode 9 to hit. Two, when they announce Old Republic, the main character has to be Revan.
Yes.
If it's not Revan, the crowd would go absolutely disgustingly violent against Disney's Star Wars franchise.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm hoping they do something like they did when they've announced major characters before, like when they announced Krennic and they had the actor walk out onto the stage. I'm hoping they kind of do something like that with Revan, where they bring the actor out in full costume,
but
so that we know
who would be Revan.
I don't know.
Cast?
I mean,
who would you cast to be Darth Revan in a live-action film?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I would do what Star Wars has done before in the past. Cast a nobody. Cast an unknown.
I would agree with that. Look for an unknown. I mean, it's worked with Daisy Ridley. It's worked for, the original cast members. I don't know if Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen and especially Ewan McGregor were really unknowns, but I mean they weren't household names until after the prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
But I would agree with that. But
I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, I would say for Revan, cast a relative unknown, and then surround him with, and this is something that they've done before, cast a couple of unknowns, but then put in a couple of veteran actors around them. Cast a couple of, not necessarily like huge, big blockbuster stars, but a
Credible
few good,
actors.
solid actors around them. I mean, that's what they did with the original trilogy, with hiring people like I can't even think of his name now. Obi-Wan.
Ewan McGregor or Alec Guinness?
Alec Guinness and with Tarkin. Those were two seasoned actors, character actors who knew their craft and could really probably work with those younger actors to help them out. And they just kind of did the same thing with the prequel trilogies with, getting a lot of unknown, but then getting some more seasoned actors who had been in, some roles that could really work as mentors for these up and coming actors. The big
thing for an Old Republic to work under under anybody, but especially under Benioff and Weiss, is you definitely have to have Revan in the story.
Yes, I agree.
You have to find the right balance of CGI with practical effects, because with the large scaleness that's going to be going on, there's going to be CGI. I hate to break it to you.
Oh yeah.
But good CGI is CGI you don't realize is CGI. I know people usually down on this, but look at Phantom Menace. A lot more of it was practical than people thought it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They didn't go to green screen studios and film the whole entire films until 2 and 3. But Phantom Menace had more practicality to it than digital effect. So I think the right balance of that. And then the third thing that isn't necessarily in the director or writer's hands, it's in the fans' hands, is don't walk into these movies expecting to get Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. It's going to draw inspiration from that, but it's not going to be the same story. And don't sit there and, bang your head against the walls. That's not the way it went in the game or in the books. It's not about the game or the books. This is a completely new story.
Yeah, exactly. We're not going to get, we might get, like I said, I think we'll probably get Revan. And who knows? I mean, that may be all we get. We may get Revan, but we may not get Bastila or, any of the other characters. Ballast, yeah. We may not get Malik.
I think you gotta have Malik. I don't know. I think you have to have those three. Because Revan's story really centers around Bastilla and Malik. Mm-hmm. So, even though, again, we're not drawing from the original source material so much, word for word, I think that's the right foil for Darth Revan.
So, I mean, do you think that we should get the fall of Revan? Do you think it should be like we start out with Revan as a Jedi and then see his fall, or should it be we get right away Darth Revan and then it's his redemption?
Well, that's a major question. I don't know if they're looking to do this like they did with Star Wars and echo actually the Skywalker saga. I think we're going to get the redemption, first, and then maybe they'll revisit for Revan's fall. But here's the question. Say, for the sake of argument, they did follow more closely to the source material than they normally do. Mm-hmm. Would you want to see Revan redeemed, or would you want to see him fall from grace? Because remember, if you remember the video game, especially the first one, Revan woke up not remembering he was a Sith. And once he was faced with the fact that he was Darth Revan, or she, depending on how you played the game, you had the choice of either being a Jedi and a good guy, or reverting back to the most feared Sith in the galaxy. So how would you want Revan's story arc to end? Would you want a redemption, or would you want a complete second fall from grace?
That's a good question. I mean, that's a tough one. Personally, I would like to see the redemption.
I think I'd go for the second fall from grace. We've seen the redemption.
True. This is very true.
I mean, I wouldn't be upset if it did follow that grassroots thing and Revan's redeemed, but I think it would be more shocking to people if the third movie of a trilogy ends on a downer.
Yeah.
Revan has returned to full power, dark side power, and is again the most feared Sith in the galaxy.
Yeah.
But what do I know? I'm not the guy writing it.
This is true. Neither am I.
So.
Anyway, moving on to our main topic tonight, we're continuing our look at Jedi Master Luke Skywalker tonight with looking at the legend of Luke Skywalker. Used a little pun there because we're going to be looking at Luke in the Star Wars Legends, the old EU.
The old EU.
The old EU. No, that is not the European Union.
Although it's about as credible nowadays.
Very true. True.
Ooh, that was a burn.
Ooh. Where's Kelso when we need him?
That's it. But no, the Grand Master Luke Skywalker, the hero that everybody wanted to see in the films because they read all these books.
Exactly. And we'll talk about Luke in the new canon next week. But I think you really kind of hit it on the head. And they even mentioned this kind of in passing, that the fact that the Luke that Rey was expecting to meet was the Luke that we had in Legends.
No, you're absolutely right, because I mean Luke Skywalker's journey in the EU was beyond Episode 6 was completely different than the story arc we got in the sequels.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's I go back and forth. It's been a while since I've read a lot of the old EU books, but
and understand, I'm not saying that either one is bad. There was a lot of EU stories involving Luke Skywalker that I absolutely loved, but at the same time, I like the story arc of Luke Skywalker in the new canon. I like his fall from grace being a little different than what it was in the EU. Because he did have a fall from grace, and actually it was
Yeah.
kind of a darker fall from grace in the EU, though he redeemed himself afterwards. But I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's been quite a while since I read the EU as well, but
Yeah.
I mean, there were some great stories, like his founding of the Jedi Temple and
Yeah.
putting together his first class of Jedi. You know, the Children of the Force series, I believe it was
Yeah.
great story arcs, and of course the Thrawn trilogy and the Hand of Thrawn trilogy were absolutely phenomenal, where we start getting introduced into characters like Mara Jade and his relationship with her, and you know, and then of course his interactions with the Solo kids and his own child,
Yeah.
you know, and their subsequent adventures. Like Luke was a very interesting character in the EU, but I not to break people's hearts, I was not disappointed to see that Luke go.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, do you think that Luke? Because I look at how that Luke acted, and there's one thing that I did not see is I didn't see any of his dad.
I didn't
old
see,
EU.
I didn't see so much of Anakin, but then again, we really didn't know Anakin yet with a lot of the story.
This is true.
All we had was what like Obi-Wan would say. You know, there wasn't really stories out there yet of Anakin and his adventures as a Jedi.
This is true. And I also like when I remember how Luke interacted with his students. I saw more Obi-Wan than I did even Yoda. And considering that Yoda was the one who basically trained him, if you go by the movies, you know, his interaction with Obi-Wan was very short. It was really Yoda was the one who trained him, but yet I see more in the old EU the influence of Obi-Wan in how he talks and how he interacts. Whereas in the new canon, especially in Last Jedi, you see a ton of Yoda.
I don't know. I would disagree a little bit. I think Luke still has that old hermit mentality on Octu. Very, very, very Obi-Wan-esque. I mean, even in the way he dressed and presented himself, being very scraggly and all. I think I would argue it wasn't so much Yoda when he was playing tricks on Rey as that was just Mark Hamill.
That's true. This is true.
It's a hard line to cross there, but But no, you're absolutely right. There was a different feel to Luke in the EU. Luke was a lot more cocksure than sometimes he had reason to be.
Yeah, and I think the one down thing I would say about Luke in the EU was I mean, we make the jokes about Anakin being Space Jesus.
Right.
But I think that was Luke in the EU. I mean, he almost could do nothing wrong.
No, Luke very much was a Gary Sue in the EU.
Yeah, I mean, he was so perfect and so overpowered. It was just, and you really didn't see him. Like, that's the one thing I can say about, like I said, and we'll get into Last Jedi next week. But I think you can't really talk about the EU Luke without talking about
the canon.
The canon is you saw a lot more character growth, and you saw a lot more depth to this Luke than you did in the EU. I think that kind of Luke, it got to a certain point. He grew to a certain point, then he just kind of stayed there. You didn't see, do you know what I'm trying to say?
No, I kind of get it, and I mean Luke was very much a Gary Sue. He doesn't do no wrong. His story arc was he was the new savior of the New Republic, and the founder of the new Jedi Order. But in reality, I mean, you can't help but compare Luke to the canon Luke, because of the fact that there were some similarities. I mean, a lot of people proclaim that Luke would never have turned his back on the Resistance. Well, remember in the stories, Luke became disenchanted with the New Republic and separated the Jedi Order from their control.
Yeah. Yep. I remember. Yeah, I remember that. So yeah, I mean, there is some similar. I guess there are some similarities.
That a lot of people do seem to forget. I mean, yeah, he didn't go into seclusion and wait to die, but he became so disenchanted that he disassociated a whole order of people from the galactic government. Said, he said, we're an independent thing now. We'll do what we want.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is, we've had only as far as the period between what would be considered the old EU period from, the end of Return of the Jedi to whatever the last of the old the Legends book, what were the last Legends books that were written?
The last ones that I remember was like the New Jedi Order series.
Yeah, New Jedi Order.
With the Yuzan Vong and really pushing into the world basically beyond Luke, although he was still a presence.
Yeah. So, and we're just now starting to get books that kind of cover that time period now between, end of Jedi to when the new trilogy starts. So, we still have to see the founding of the Jedi of the Jedi Temple with the new canon and stuff like that. So it's still kind of interesting to see where they go with that story and seeing Luke, Luke's fall.
I think people are going to be very shocked when Episode 9 releases and that story arc is completely done, and we're going to start getting a flood of the shit that happened in between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy. And we're going to start seeing Luke and his Jedi Order and his bringing Ben Solo into the mix and the fall from grace and the rise of Kylo Ren and and I think they're going to start seeing a lot more similarities to the EU Luke than they really thought was going to be.
Well, I think the other thing that's going to help with the new canon compared to the old one, and this is a problem that just the old canon, the Legends had in general, was because it wasn't really, I mean, it was kind of loosely under LucasArts and Lucasfilm, but there was no real continuity. So there were so many books that were written and so many stories that were told that, you had contradictions. You had, a book would say one thing and then you find out later on, because of the prequels, like, well, that wasn't exactly the way we thought it was. So then you had to go back and retcon that to fix that so it fit in with that, or just say, well, that's not really canon. And now that that's one thing about with them being under the preview of Disney is they can set a very strict standard of, okay, this is what we're going to be using now for our canon. Don't deviate from this. Stay in this little box,
Right. The story has to end up here.
Yes. Yeah, you have the beginning and the end. Anything in between, but as long as it doesn't deviate from, from this, I don't, you're not going to see Luke, going, full dark side, shortly after the Battle of Endor or anything like that, but as long as you end here, you're fine.
Right, and again, with the new canon, Luke is not an old man at the end of Return of the Jedi by any means, and we have to get 30 years 25 years, I guess you could say, to the fall of his Jedi Order. He was only, in that 30-year span, he was only running that order for, give or take, about 10 years.
Yeah.
So you still got 20 years of material that we don't know what adventures Luke was doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Besides setting up his Jedi Temple and looking for students and all. Because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, in the new canon, the temple that burned, that Ben had burned, that was his first class.
I'm not sure. I believe so. Like I said, we don't really have a lot of info on that, so
I believe that was his first student class. So, yeah, we got 20 years of material that they could start telling. And again, I think we're going to start seeing a lot of similarities to the Skywalker that we were introduced to in the first Thrawn trilogy book, Heir to the Empire, sitting on a rooftop drinking hot cocoa. But I definitely think that Luke is going to be almost the same character as the EU, but with slight variances that lead him to the path that he's going to be. And the big thing about the EU that a lot of people seem to forget is, there were some great story arcs and great character developments, but you're absolutely right. There was too many hands in the cookie jar screwing up the stories, and people do seem to forget that shitty books had come out. Things like the Dark Crystal, or the Crystal Star, or Darksaber. Just to name two off of the top of my head, that were god awful and pretty much retconned in their own rights as far as what was canon back when the EU was canon.
Yeah.
Not everything was sunshine and rainbows in the EU back then.
Oh no. I mean, when you have that many books, I mean, you're going to have some stinkers in there. And I mean, we've talked about this before, that the old EU, to paraphrase Kylo, the past needed to die.
Well, yeah. Again, when they first announced that they were doing Star Wars, that Disney bought Lucasfilm, and the first thing Lucasfilm did is said everything that came after Return of the Jedi, it's gone. Or it's not gone. It's Legends. You can still buy it. They're still releasing it. They're not releasing any new ones, but they're still re-releasing the old ones. They're reprinting them.
Yeah.
You can still read and enjoy the EU and the Adventures of Luke Skywalker that way. But I was thrilled when they did that, because I was not going to see the exact same thing I've already read.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I think most people kind of shared that belief as well. It's like, although it would have been cool to see some of the things that happened in the EU on film, especially like somebody like Mara Jade, or or the like. It would have been awesome, but I'm glad they didn't rehash. They didn't just tell me a story I already knew.
Well, I mean, that's the problem though, is if you were to have done Legends, where do you go? I mean, which story do you tell? Do you tell the Thrawn trilogy? If you do you tweak it so that it takes place this many years? Because let's be honest, the Thrawn trilogy took place 5 years, was supposed to have taken place 5 years after Return of the Jedi. Well, you can't pass off Mark Hamill now as being, 5 years after the Return of the Jedi.
No,
there's just no way you can do that.
If you were gonna do the Hand of Thrawn, you had to do it either before or right after the prequels.
Yeah.
To have Mark Hamill at that right time frame.
Yeah, because the only other thing you can do is to do New Jedi Order. Is to do,
God,
and then,
no Yuzhan Vong.
Yeah, or not even the Yuzhan Vong, but like after the Yuzhan Vong,
right.
Do that. You could have done that time period. But then you have that whole bag of worms. Is okay. How do you explain everything that happened before then? How do you explain why Coruscant was destroyed and all these other things? You have that whole can of worms to. So I think they made a good choice in doing what they did.
Oh, absolutely, and even the character developments, because again, we said it earlier in the segment. Luke was very much a Gary Sue in the EU, and especially towards the end of his time, his older self when he became a Grand Master. Luke was popping out brand new Jedi Force powers and shit like people change underwear. Like, he was so powerful. How do you really develop that on film to be a relatable character?
Yeah. True.
It was entertaining as hell to read. I'm not going to say it wasn't, but to actually watch on film and Mark Hamill play basically an omnipotent god.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Yeah.
I love Mark Hamill. I think he's a great actor, not just in Luke Skywalker, but I don't think he would pull that off well, especially as Luke Skywalker.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree with you there. Well, let's let's go kind of a little bit more into Luke in the EU and talk about some of his relationships. And of course, I don't think you can talk about any relationship with Luke in the EU without talking about Mara Jade.
Oh yeah, his his wife who tried to marry him, or yeah,
murder him.
Well, murder, marry, it's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and we never talked about Mara Jade when we were talking about our women of Star Wars. So
yeah, we did.
But we did? Oh, I did not think we did.
I don't think we gave her own particular segment. I think she wound up in the collection of women.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it was really interesting, and I just remember reading the Thrawn trilogy books and reading at the end when everything kind of wrapped up at the end, thinking to myself, those two are going to get together. They set it up really perfectly. Like, this is before I'd read any of the other books where they actually get married, and I'm like, those two, Luke and her are going to get together. I can see it.
Oh, absolutely. And that's a credit to Timothy Zahn as a writer, creating a character like Mara Jade and really putting together this really dynamic story arc of a girl who was trained to be the assassin of the Emperor for the Emperor, whose last duty was to kill the person who killed her Emperor, who she blamed Luke, even though we all know it was actually Vader. And somehow, some way, Luke becomes prisoner to Mara, and Luke just straight max on her while he's prisoner to her, and she winds up falling in love with him.
I know, yeah. Well, I just thought about this, too, and Mara was Ventress before Ventress.
She really was.
I mean, the Sith, the assassin, she was Ventress before Ventress.
I'd even go so far as to say she was Starkiller before Starkiller.
Yeah.
Because Ventress was the secret assassin of Dooku. Starkiller was the secret assassin of Darth Vader.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say they fall under the same boat, all three of them.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I know for a fact that Dala was a lover of Palpatine, but was Mara too?
A lover?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, because I know Admiral Dala was.
No, she was as far as I remember in the EU, and again, it's been a while, but as far as I remember, she was a tool of the Empire.
Yeah.
And the Emperor in general.
No, because I just remembered that, and remember that Admiral Dala had been, and that just always sends a shudder down my spine thinking of.
Ooh, old man balls that are already shriveled with age, and now they're shriveled with dark force energy. Ew.
Yeah.
I can just see him pulling off his Sith robes and with a heart on. Unlimited power! And that's why there's a mature rating on our videos.
Oh.
I just ruined it for everybody.
You just ruined. Forget Ryan Johnson. You just ruined my childhood.
And that's it. Yeah, that is actually ruining your childhood right there. Especially when the Emperor shows up in Episode 9, everybody's going to sit there to listen to this podcast, and as soon as Ian McDiarmid appears on screen, everybody's just going to be envisioning him doing the Flasher thing with a trench coat, screaming unlimited power. God damn that guy on War of the Stars.
Wow. So let's talk about moving right along. His son
Ben,
and I mean, do you see any similarities between any of the characters that we've seen in the new trilogy and Ben Skywalker, or is Ben just basically just a character on his own?
He's got the same name as Kylo.
Yeah,
Beyond that,
I
no.
see. I see more similarities between Jason and Ben Solo than I do but I do Ben Skywalker.
I would have said Anakin Solo.
Yeah,
I really would have compared Kylo more to Anakin Solo when he had his turn.
I say, yeah. I say Jason just because Jason was the one that turned fully.
True.
He was the one that became Darth Caedus, and
But remember, Kylo's never really fully turned. He's still, even now, as nutty as he's becoming, hasn't fully given himself to the dark side. He's still got that flicker of light in him, which is, of course, why a lot of people feel he's going to be redeemed this movie. I'm hoping for the opposite, but I mean, we'll see how it happens in 9. But he still has that flicker of light in him. But then again, you think about it, there's not really many characters in the dark side universe in canon that wasn't somebody who wasn't necessarily fully turned. Dooku liked the power of the dark side, but he was an aristocrat. He preferred prestige.
Yeah.
Maul was a hunter more than a Sith Lord, although he was damn good at a Sith Lord. So I wouldn't necessarily say he was even given over completely to the dark side. We know Anakin wasn't, because they made a couple movies about it. Really, on film, the only character we've ever seen that was truly given over to the dark side was Palpatine.
Yeah, and even then, I mean, because he craved political power.
He craved political power, but I think he also craved destroying the rule of two, Darth Bane's rule of two.
Yeah.
I think he really wanted to change this. I think he was more in love with the old Republic and the days where the Sith were basically a race.
Mm-hmm.
And where you could have a bunch of Sith masters and Sith apprentices and create a complete Sith army and empire. Out of it. I think that's really what he wanted. I think his ambition was his dark side.
Yeah.
But we're talking about Luke, not Palpatine.
We are talking about Luke.
We'll save that for Sheev. The episode on Sheev. See, that's something you got to give the new canon. Everybody forever wants to dog the new canon because they fell in love with the EU for so many years, and I get it because I grew up with the EU too.
Oh yeah.
But the new canon gave us Palpatine's first name.
Mm-hmm.
Something we all wanted to know.
Yeah. Yep. Sheev.
Yep. So.
Good old Sheev. The Senate.
So if you can't accept anything else, at least give thanks for that. Now we know his first name. 40 years later. But no, I mean his interactions with Han and Leia's kids and his own child. He was a lot more loving and a little less following of the strict Jedi codes that he kind of hated in new canon. Mm-hmm. Like in the old, but again, we're talking about before Lucas had decided to say, hey, I'm making a prequel trilogy and love's forbidden. And, so again, we're getting to see a whole new world where, for your own headcanon, Luke turned around and said, okay, that's not the right answer. Look what it did to my father.
Yeah.
And he found a way of balancing being a Jedi master and a trainer with being a father, especially to Force-sensitive children.
Yeah.
And guess what? It didn't always work out, as in the case with Jason and with Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, in the Star Wars universe, let's be fair, don't name your child Anakin.
Anakin. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Do you want dead
But
younglings? That's how you get dead younglings.
yeah, this is true. This is true. Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, those interactions were really great, and I really love the one thing I did love about EU Luke was he never lost his connections to Leia, Han, Lando, Chewie. You know,
Yeah,
R
they're
two,
always
three PO. They were always together,
Yeah.
or not that far away from each other. So, if I miss anything about the EU Luke over the new canon Luke was that the EU Luke still had love for the people he fought and bled with.
Yeah.
Not that the new canon Luke didn't, just he went away where this Luke wouldn't have.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree.
You know, but his accepting his role as a mentor, a father figure, a father, a Jedi master, and still accepting the fact that him and Leia are brother and sister, so they're now family. Han is married to Leia now, so he's a brother. You know,
Yeah.
so like it was very much a family thing for Luke, and I think that was one of the main themes of Luke in the EU was that Luke was getting to know the family he never had growing up on Tatooine, and then you know, especially after Owen and Beru died, and then Obi-Wan died, and so everybody he cared about died. He still had a family.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. The Legends Luke never stopped being the farm boy.
Right.
You know, whereas I think this Luke, the new canon Luke, at some point did. Yeah, he stopped being that wide-eyed, almost somewhat. And I think this is,
Naive.
Luke got into most of the not necessarily whiny, but I think this is the one thing that I see the difference between at least the Luke that we see in Last Jedi and the Luke we see in the EU was what got Luke in the trouble in the old EU was he was so trusting of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you see this. I mean, who knows? We may see a change once like you said, once we start getting a flood of new canon books in. We might see that he used to be trusting, then it bit him in the butt, and that's how we see this new Luke. But the old EU Luke was someone that always saw the good in everybody, and sometimes it would come back to bite him. I mean, for crying out loud, you had I can't even think of the characters. He used to be one of my favorite characters. It was the one that fell to Exar Kun.
Oh hell, you're asking me to remember.
Oh. But you had one of the books where you had one of his students fall to Exar Kun and become one of his disciples and almost destroy the temple, and in the end he's like, all's forgiven.
Yeah.
Come on back. You're cool.
You're absolutely right, but I think besides the fact that he had that trusting image, is he gave himself over completely to the teachings and beliefs of the Jedi Order, something that in the movies Luke always struggled with.
Yeah.
So I think that was a departure of character too in the EU, was that Luke was laser focused Jedi.
Yeah.
And he was good at being a Jedi in the EU. He never stopped to react hard. He never went off half cocked and too brash or instinctive as he would do in the movies. He was a lot more calculating and trusting in his own abilities in the Force.
Yeah.
Something that the new canon Luke would have considered hubris.
Yeah.
Which again leads back to why I think when we get the flood of canon of the stuff that happens after Jedi, We may see that, Luke.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yep.
he definitely, besides having that nice guy naivety, he grew in power and ability in power immensely, and in turn just gave himself over to the principal teachings of the Jedi way too fast for what the character originally would have done in the films.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're going to wrap things up there, leave some of the rest of the conversation for next week when we wrap up our look at Luke Skywalker. Before we get going, just want to say, remember, if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to this on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe. Check us out on anchor.fm. You can check out all our other shows there. And also, remember to, if you want to leave us some monetary help, we greatly appreciated. We have a Patreon page, and also on anchor.fm there is a page where you can support us there. And Chris, where else can they find you or us or anybody else?
You can find me anywhere there's Realm of the Mist Entertainment on social media, here on YouTube. Of course, like, subscribe, comment, share. The more people that see it, the more people can become friends of it. So, and of course on PayPal, on Anchor or wherever quality podcasts are heard.
Hey, if they want to give me money on PayPal, that's quite all right.
That's right.
I will not complain.
So, yeah, wherever quality podcasts can be heard.
That's right. That's right. You can find me on,
Yeah, it's a little hard tonight, isn't it?
I know. I don't know what's. You can find me on Facebook at Mark Tolly, on Twitter at JohnMarkTolly1, and on Instagram at JohnTolly3930. And remember to check us out next week as, like I said, we continue finish up our look at Luke Skywalker. And after that, we're going to be taking a week off. I got a little mini vacation coming up that week, so I'm just taking that week off.
Yay!
I know. Yes.
Again, being the only guy that records every show, even if I'm not on the show, I'm recording the show. So a day off, I'll take it.
Yeah. Until then, remember, this isn't just my Star Wars. This isn't just your Star Wars. This is our Star Wars. Until next time, may the Force be with you.
Always.
Why didn't the Three Little Pigs go in for some kind of flat share scheme?
Does Jesus get to choose which wine he turns it into?
Why don't Sims have the upper body strength to climb out of a swimming pool?
And does everybody really want to be a cat?
I'm Will Baker.
And I'm Alex Prescott.
And if you're the type of person that overthinks these deep philosophical questions, then Think to the Brink is the podcast for you.
From Disney characters to song lyrics, debates to social etiquette, tune in every week for your dose of paralysis by analysis.
All topic suggestions are welcome. If you can think it, we can overthink it. Think to the Brink. Available on all podcast platforms.
Hey everyone, this is John Tolly. I invite you to check out War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast. Each week, me and my co-host Christopher Stolle discuss the news and theories surrounding one of the largest movie franchises in the world. So join us every Wednesday at 8 Eastern as we travel to the galaxy far, far away, right here on Anchor FM and wherever fine podcasts are heard.
When you need CBD, vape juice, or new mod, go to Vape Scorpion. 10859 Boston Avenue, Philadelphia, PA 19116. They are formerly known as East Coast Vapor. They have all your needs, all the equipment, all the juice. And hey, while you're there, sit down, enjoy a beer, and just hang out with a bunch of cool people. As if you really need your next vape machine, or maybe you just want to try a locally made juice, make sure you hit up Vape Scorpion. That's 1085 Boston Avenue, Philadelphia, PA 19116. or give a call to 215-464-8273. Oh yeah, and make sure you let them know that Realm of the Mist Entertainment sent you.
He said, but she said, how dare you say that? That's offensive. Well, someone's gotta say it. It had to be said with Venus. Catch the live show Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Check out the recordings at any time. Guest shows weekly. Listener, beware. Mature content, sexual content, trigger warning. Do you dare say it?
Hi, my name's Chris, and I'm here to tell about Realm of the Mist podcast. Realm of the podcast, we talk about all the great entertainment things from movies, music, books, comic books, and many other forms of entertainment, as well as politics, current events, and just general humor and having a good time. If you're looking for a podcast that is right up your alley, look no further than Realm of the Mist podcast here on Anchor.fm, where fine podcasts can be heard.
Hi, this is Dave from the Comic Collection at 83 Bustleton Pike in Feasterville, Pennsylvania. Our phone number is 215-357-3332. We are right next to Northeast Philadelphia. We have action figures, gaming, statues, albums, and CDs, graphic novels, other knickknacks, and, of course, comics. Established in 1985, we are your go-to store. Come by and say hello, and say that the guys from Radiocast FM Radio sent you. The address again is 83 Bustleton Pike, Feasterville, Pennsylvania, or call 215-357-3332.
Three-eyed turtle? Is that alright?
I'm fucking a three-eyed turtle.
Who wants a mustache ride?
Are you tired of the same old podcasts with no humor? Well, join us for After Hours, where everything is funny, at least to us, on Anchor.fm, and where quality podcasts are heard.
How the fuck did we get on this?
I don't know.
Fucking FCC started this shit. It's their fucking fault.
Hey everyone, this is Dak.
This is Liam.
And this is White People Shit.
We are a bi-weekly podcast.
Whoa. Maybe you're bi-week. I'm straight and strong.
It means twice a week, you douche.
Oh. Yeah, listen to us twice a week. On White People Wednesdays, we talk about gay stuff, zombies, superhero sex positions.
And on Featured Peep Fridays, we interview the Featured Peep of the Week.
Yeah, like a fucking furry.
Just search WPS Podcast and look for the white dude in red pajamas.
We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, and other podcasts.
We believe in equal opportunity humor, where all things can be made fun of. So if your feelings get hurt and you're offended, you can always
eat a dick.